Chanelle Johanneson, student number 568-11640. Being a professional teacher, assignment 6, grade 3, fraction lesson. Once upon a time, in a faraway land lived a little girl and a little boy. The little girl and the little boy sat on the bedroom floor of their tiny bedroom in their tiny old house on top of a hill. Today is Mommy's birthday, and Jim and Jane counted their last few cents. It was just enough to buy a magical pink birthday cake for Mommy. They knew that somewhere in the world, one lucky person stood a chance to win the last magic ticket to the magic cake factory, and it could only be found in a magical pink birthday cake. Later that afternoon, Jim and Jane stood at their kitchen table and sang happy birthday to their mother. Slowly, they started to cut the magic pink birthday cake, but there was no golden ticket to be found. This left Jim and Jane feeling very sad. As they cut the last slice of cake, Jim and Jane spotted a shiny gold piece of paper. It was the last magic golden ticket to the magic cake factory. Jim and Jane walked slowly towards the magic cake factory, and to their surprise, they were not the only ones. There were 5 other contestants. Each contestant was to bring along a family member. Jim and Jane went together. Suddenly 4 little yellow men came running towards them, speaking very quickly, "This way, please, this way," as one of the little yellow men pointed towards the magic cake factory. Jim and Jane, along with the yellow men and the other contestants, went into a large room. In the middle of the room stood a large chocolate cake. One of the little yellow men mentioned for everyone to stop and ask a question. "What is the fraction of this cake?" he asked. Ben and Sarah, 2 naughty children, shouted, "A half!" "No," said the little yellow man. Everybody else answered, "A whole!" "Correct!" said the little yellow man. Suddenly Ben and Sarah disappeared. Now only 5 couples left. Jim and Jane followed the little yellow men and the other contestants into another room. In the middle of the room stood a beautiful strawberry cake. The little yellow man asked, "What does it mean if the cake is cut into 2 pieces?" Sally, with the 2 long ponytails, shouted, "Then the cake is cut into quarters." "Incorrect," said the little yellow man. Before their eyes, Sally and her little sister, who kept trying to trick the other children while they were walking, disappeared. Everyone else answered, "It will be cut into 2 halves." "Correct," said the little yellow man. They all moved slowly through the magic cake factory to the next room. Here stood a delicious carrot cake. The little yellow man asked, "How would you split this cake so that each pair of contestants in the room will get a piece of cake? What fraction will each pair get?" All of a sudden, Tom, the little boy with the cap, jumped up and said, "Hey, little yellow man, the answer is a third." The little yellow man replied, "Sorry, wrong answer." Tom, who was making fun of all the other children, and his father, the bodybuilder, suddenly disappeared. Everyone else said that the answer was a quarter. "Correct," said the little yellow man. There were only 3 pairs left. They all continued to the next room in the cake factory. This room had a big raspberry cake in the middle. We stopped, and the little yellow man asked, "How is this cake related to the cake in room 3? Tess shouted out, "It has 1 piece more." "Incorrect, young lady," replied the little yellow man. Once again, the pair with the wrong answer disappeared. Everyone else answered, "This cake has 1 less piece of cake, which is 3 quarters." The little yellow man replied, "Correct." There were now only 2 pairs of contestants left. We walked down a long passage to get to the next room in the cake factory. In this room was a big white and pink wedding cake. As we stopped, the little yellow man asked, "What would happen if I cut this cake into 3 pieces?" Little Betty answered, "Then we can all have a piece." "Sorry, "That is incorrect," replied the little yellow man. Betty and her grandpa then disappeared. The little yellow man carried on by saying, "Jane and Jim, if you get this answer right and the following 3 answers correct, you will win the contest and get to live at the factory with your family." The little yellow man repeated the question. Jane answered, "The cake will be cut into 3 pieces, which means it will be cut into thirds." The little yellow men jumped up, shouting, "Correct!" When Jim and Jane entered the next room with the little yellow men, they asked them 3 questions. Question 1, said the one little yellow man, "If I cut a cake in half and then in half again, how many pieces do I have?" Another little yellow man said, Question 2, "If there are 8 people in the room, how many more times must you cut the cake so that each person gets a slice?" Another little man jumped in front of Jim and asked the last question, "What fraction would each person get of the cake?" Jim answered the first question. "The first answer is a quarter." One little yellow man jumped up, clapping, and shouted, "Correct!" Jane answered the second question by saying, "The answer is, you will have to cut it 4 more times." The little yellow men shouted out, "Correct!" The last answer Jim and Jane answered at the same time. The answer to the last question is 1/8. All the little yellow men jumped up and down and screamed, "Correct!" Jim and Jane won the contest and together with their mother lived happily ever after in the cake factory with the little yellow men. The end.